For years, the Muslim Brotherhood has been playing a very patient, very deliberate long game inside France. Not through terrorism, not through separatism, but through something far more sophisticated. Infiltrating schools, local governments, charities, and mosques. Reshaping French institutions from the inside out, one neighborhood at a time. And for years, the French government just looked the other way. Until now. France just did something that's sending shockwaves through every Islamist network in Europe. And we're going to find out how President Trump is doing something very similar here at home. The West is waking up, and it's pushing back big time. Hey gang, it's me, Dr. Steve, your Patriot Professor, here to help you make sense of the madness with breaking news and analysis you're not going to get anywhere else. You know what to do. Make sure to smack that bell and subscribe button. Now, if you've been with this channel for some time, you already know that Europe has been moving in a far more nationalist, more culturally assertive direction for some time now. We talked about, for example, Switzerland's national burqa ban, passed by popular referendum. We talked about Austria closing mosques and expelling over 60 Turkish-funded imams. We talked about Hungary and Poland simply refusing to accept Muslim migrants at all. And we've talked about France itself, closing 92 mosques, banning the abaya in schools, reinforcing the burqa ban, raiding Islamic associations in the wake of the beheading of that school teacher Samuel Paty. But what just happened literally weeks ago is of a completely different level, because this time France didn't just close a mosque or ban a garment. France named a strategy, and then France made that strategy a crime. Back in May of last year, a 73-page classified report landed on the desk of the French Interior Minister. Its title, The Muslim Brotherhood and Political Islam in France. And what it revealed was absolutely explosive. The report identified 139 mosques in France linked to the Muslim Brotherhood. Another 280 affiliated associations were spread across schools, charities, sports clubs, and community organizations. Roughly 1 in 10 mosques in France were operating under Brotherhood influence. And the report identified something it called a third threat, something more dangerous than terrorism or open separatism because it's invisible to most people. They called it entryism. The deliberate, coordinated infiltration of Republican institutions, schools, local governments, public bodies, not to blow them up, but to reshape them quietly, legally, from within, from the inside. The report described a phenomenon it called municipal Islamism, a strategy of running candidates for local councils, school boards, and neighborhood associations, winning positions of institutional trust, and then using those positions to redirect funding, shape curricula, and gradually normalize Islamic law alongside French law. In some Paris suburbs and in cities like Lyon and Strasbourg, this isn't a theory. It's already happening. And here's what makes this so strategically alarming. The Brotherhood isn't doing anything illegal. They're playing the Republic's own rules against the Republic itself. They're using liberalism as a weapon against liberal democracy. Now, President Macron responded to the report in July of last year with new financial and administrative sanctions, so asset freezes, expanded powers to dissolve associations, tighter oversight of mosque funding. But a lot of people looked at that response and said, ain't enough. It doesn't hit them at the core. These are just these are just inconveniences. They're not solutions. And so members of the French parliament decided to do something about it. Now, what's so fascinating here is that Marine Le Pen and her party, the Nationalist Populist National Rally Party, they played a surprisingly minor direct role in drafting this specific legislation. And that's actually part of what makes the legislation so significant. So while Le Pen has been busy fighting the ridiculous conviction she received in court, former Interior Minister Bruno Retailleau from the center-right Republican Party of France has been leading the charge against entryism. And what's so key here is that Retailleau is widely seen as positioning himself for a 2027 presidential run, and he deliberately wanted this bill to be his, a center-right Republican achievement, rather than a so-called far-right National Rally initiative, precisely because the so-called far right has now gone mainstream. And everyone from center right to center left is positioning themselves to be seen as fully aligned now with the French public's demand to put an end to this Islamic threat growing within their institutions. Retailleau basically took the report's findings and turned it into legislation. He drafted a bill creating a criminal offense for entryism. Specifically, the bill targets coordinated actions aimed at leading a public or private body to adopt decisions that seriously undermine the constitutionally defined principles of the Republic. In plain English, simply put, if you organize a deliberate campaign to subvert a French institution, a school, a local council, a public body from the inside, you can now go to prison for it for a minimum of 5 years. And on May 5th, 2026, the French Senate voted on that bill, and it passed overwhelmingly by a vote of 208 to 124. It's now before the National Assembly, and President Macron wants a bill on his desk to sign by the end of the summer. But if all goes according to plan, it will be officially illegal to engage in entryism, meaning it will be illegal to weaponize French institutions against France itself. It will be the first time in Western history that a government has looked the Muslim Brotherhood in the eye, named their infiltration strategy out loud, and then said, not here, not anymore. It will now be a criminal offense to infiltrate a French institution, a school, a city council, even a mosque, with the deliberate aim of subverting it from within. This is France deliberately criminalizing the Brotherhood's core operating strategy on French soil. For the first time, the strategy has a name, and the name will now carry a prison sentence. So if that's the case for France, it's begging a larger question, isn't it? Aren't we here in the United States facing a comparable kind of entryism? Aren't we seeing a mass Marxist movement trying to undermine our nation from within? And can we crush this infiltration in a manner comparable to how France is doing it? That's exactly what we're about to find out. But first, let me ask you something. Have you noticed that, no matter how hard you work, it feels like your money just doesn't go as far as it used to? We keep hearing politicians in Washington argue over spending, but the truth is the national debt is quietly acting like a hidden tax on every single paycheck you earn. Every time the elites print more money to fund their agendas, the dollars in your wallet and your retirement account lose their power. For years, the establishment told us to trust the system, right? Work hard, save your money, and everything will be fine. But what happens when the very people running the system are the ones inflating your wealth away? Well, that's how they keep you dependent. They control the currency, so they control your future. But what if you didn't have to stay trapped in their system? What if you were just one trade plan away from a more independent financial future? That's the message inside the name Backpack Trader. It's not about Wall Street. It's not about staring at screens all day. It's about learning a simple plan that you can carry with you, a skill the elites can't inflate away, a plan that can help you build confidence and real choices from wherever you are. Now, I know some of you are thinking, Steve, trading? Isn't that risky? And I understand that totally. I was skeptical too. That's why I trust my good friend Troy Noonan, the Backpack Trader. Troy has spent 35 years perfecting a step-by-step approach for everyday people like you and me. And I know it works because I'm actually a member of his program. And here's what makes Troy different. He shows you how to prove the plan before you risk a single penny of your hard-earned money in the markets. It's amazing stuff. So go to backpacktrader.com/turleyfreedom right now. Troy is hosting a free live training called Backpack Trader Live on Wednesday, July 22nd at 7 p.m. Eastern. When you register, he'll send you his 12 Powers to Successful Trading ebook. And when you show up live, you'll unlock the private replay of our Turley Roundtable with Troy, me, and real Backpack Trader patriots. Go to, again, backpacktrader.com/Turley freedom and reserve your spot. What the French just named entryism is precisely what the cultural Marxist Antonio Gramsci prescribed for the American left 80 years ago. What's often referred to as the long march through the institutions, school boards, university departments, seminaries, HR departments, corporate boardrooms, same strategy, and with the rise of Islamo-socialism here in the United States, same comparable ideology. Now, we do have what's called the Communist Control Act of 1954, which stripped the Communist Party of the United States of all legal rights and privileges and declared membership in it a criminal act. It's never been formally repealed. However, it's also never been enforced. Courts have largely ignored it, and the DOJ has treated it as a dead letter since the 1960s. Nevertheless, President Trump has launched an all-out war against the rise of cultural Marxism throughout the country and our institutions. So this is why dismantling DEI across the entire federal government was so important. Beginning on day one of his second term, Trump signed executive orders terminating all DEI offices, all DEI programs, all DEI hiring preferences, and all DEI contracts across every single federal agency. So this is direct anti-entryism, stripping out the ideological infrastructure that Marxist activists embedded in federal institutions over the prior decade. This is why Trump has purged DEI from the military or in the foreign service and federal contracting. He's directed the DOJ as well to prosecute private sector DEI violations under existing civil rights law. And he's targeting universities, threatening investigations of universities with endowments of over $1 billion. And his next frontier now is K-12 education, using federal funding leverage to force curriculum transparency and withholding Title I dollars from districts that teach explicitly Marxist frameworks like critical race theory. Several Republican governors like DeSantis and Abbott, they've already shown that this is legally viable at the state level. So the key here is that Trump is targeting the behavior of cultural Marxists rather than simply their beliefs. He's targeting ideological entryism through DEI, curriculum capture, institutional capture, rather than target simply their beliefs, which keeps it relatively constitutional, right? So as with France, the strategy is name it, expose it, defund it, criminalize the coordinated behavior. Name it, expose it, defund it, and criminalize the coordinated behavior. France named entryism in 2025. Trump declared anti-communism in 2026. But the key is that both countries, and indeed the whole of the West, is waking up. And when a civilization finally wakes up, gang, it doesn't just push back, it reclaims. What you're watching from the halls of the French Senate to the executive order signed in the Oval Office is not a political skirmish. It's a civilizational immune response. And history tells us that when the West finally decides it's had enough, the long march through the institutions becomes a very short march out of them.